Okay, so this is part 2 or continuation of that last video. I had some technical difficulties. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. So let's say we know the first number is 7. We know the nth number is 111, and our n is 14. So we can figure out how they're all added together between the 14 rows, 14 days, however you want to count them. Okay, and we can solve it without finding our d, which really, really, really saves us a lot of time. So S of n is equal to our n. We know n is 14. A of 1 is 7. A of n is 111 all over 2. And then 7 plus 111 is 118 over 2. 118 divided by 2. That's going to give us 59. And 14 times 59 is going to give us 826. Okay, and then so really any at least for these should be pretty simple because you're already going to know the information. There might be some problems I'll give you guys where it's like a word problem or something along those lines. But we'll stick with these for now as long as you guys kind of understand the general concept of the n is like the number of rows or the layers or the days. And then A1 is what your measure is on that day. And then AN is what your measure is on that nth day. So let's go ahead and take a look. If you know the first term, your D, which is your common difference, and then your N, which is your number. So, okay. So the way this kind of works is this is our formula we just used, right? And that's the one we just had. Why is this being weird? Okay. So that's the formula we just had. So all we do is we take this A of n and we replace it with our A of n formula that we used for our sequences. And then that's just some simplification. This is our new formula. Okay. So this is when you know A of 1 when you know n and d. Okay, so let me give you guys an example. So let's say I have A of 1 is 0, and D is equal to 7, N is equal to 12. So realistically, the long, hard way would be like row 1 has 0, add 7, row 2 has... Maybe row 1 is like for wheelchair people, there's no seats, 0. Row 2, you have to add 7, so 7, 14, so on, so on, so on, right? Until you hit row 12, and we don't even know what that number is. But with this formula up here, we can solve for all those rows being added up. So let's take a look. S of n is n over 2. So we know our n is 12, so we need 12 divided by 2. Do a bracket. 2 times our A1 is 0 plus n minus 1. So that's going to give us 12 minus 1. And our D is going to be 7 and off in a bracket. Okay, so let's simplify. So this 12 divided by 2 gives me a 6. 2 times 0, anything times 0 is 0, so it's 0 plus. And then let's go ahead and solve inside the parentheses. 12 minus 1 is 11. And then multiply that by 7. Keep the bracket. Okay. 0 plus any number is the same number. So if I say 5 plus 0, 100 plus 0, anything, 0 doesn't change the value. So I'm just going to go ahead and not rewrite that. And then 11 times 7 is 77. Okay. And then 6 times 77 gives me 462. So let's say in this theater, there's 12 rows. Each row adds 7. The first row has 0 because there's no seats because it's for handicapped folk. And then, so you need to have the seat covers, and you're going to have 462 seat covers you need to order, okay? So that would be your final answer. So like I said, you could continue to keep adding until you hit row 12, and even already getting to 3 is like, it's getting up there. Imagine adding to 12, adding all those numbers. Instead of doing all of that, this formula solves that for you. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. See, this one, n is 45. So imagine counting like 45 numbers in a row. That's a lot of work. Okay, so we'll do the same equation. S of n is equal to n over 2, and then 2a1 plus n minus 1 times d. Okay, our n is 45, so we're going to do 45 over 2. 2 times 28 plus, and then n is 45, so 45 minus 1. And then our d is 8. Okay, so let's try to solve inside the parentheses first. So at this point, we want to make sure we're keeping track of our formulas because we don't want to mess anything up. You can kind of do multiple things at once. I'm going to kind of go through step by step just to remind you guys, we don't have to rush it. It's okay to go through step by step. I know sometimes I talk really fast. That's because my brain goes really fast, so I do apologize. Okay, so we have 44. That's 45 minus 1 times 8. So we can do our multiplications inside of our big bracket, which is like a parentheses. You treat a bracket like a parentheses. It just helps us keep track of the different parentheses in there. So 2 times 28, don't know that off the top of my head. 56. 44 times 8. Okay, now we're going to solve for the rest of the parentheses or the bracket. Add 56 to get 408. Okay, so and now we can just kind of multiply it all together. So 45 divided by 2 times 408 gives me 9,180. So like I said, you're not going to be adding up 45 numbers, calculating 45 numbers, trying to get this 9,000. This example was a little more steps than our last one. And that's mostly due to the fact that this first one had a 0, so we made it really simple. And this was an even number, so it's a little bit prettier numbers we could kind of work with. But regardless, we still got our answer. We're still able to add all those summations. And then I'm not going to go too much into this right now, but whenever we're adding a bunch of numbers at once, there's a notation that we use. It's called sigma notation. And I just don't want you guys to be scared of this. I know this, like, it's going to look completely different. You know how there's like symbols for like square root and other things in math. There's a symbol that looks like almost like an E. Looks like that. And then like this number here would be your last value. And then this would be your first value. So kind of like how we had it for other examples, like our first value of the terms, our last value of the set. It's just a different way to write this, okay? So this is your first value. And then whatever function you have. So like remember for the arithmetic functions, we said that it was a linear function. So it would be a linear function right there. And let's say it's our geometric, then we would do our geometric function. But I just want to kind of get you guys introduced. It's going to be very similar to what we've done before. And then you could know from this information which formula you're going to use. So let's say you had this information, you could use that first formula that we had.